Welcome to the Summit for Wellness podcast, where we help you climb to the peak of your health. And now, here is your host, Brian Carroll.
After recording over 150 podcast episodes, I can typically get a pretty good sense of how well an episode is going to be based off of my conversation with my guest. And I have to say, today's episode may be the episode of the year for 2021. Now, my guest, Navin Hettiarachchi, he works with a lot of different pro athletes and pro sports teams, but there's a lot of lessons that he has learned over the years that can apply to everyone. So in this episode, we're going to talk about a lot of different strategies, how to optimize your own health. We're going to be looking at sleep quality, movement, nutrition, different ways to incorporate all these into your daily routines, and what you can do today to improve your overall health. My name is Brian Carroll. I'm here to help you move more, eat well, and be adventurous. So let's dive into my conversation with Navin Hettiarachchi. Navin Hettiarachchi is an athletic trainer and strength and conditioning coach who has worked with teams such as the Washington Mystics and Washington Wizards. He is considered a one-stop go-to authority for health, wellness, and performance, where he used the REDT Method to assess and treat his athletes. Thank you for coming onto the show, Navin.
Brian, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to speak with you. I love your podcast. I love the name. I love everything about you. So it's absolutely my pleasure to be connected with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to chat with you. One, I really love your energy, but also I love that you're incorporating so much into your REDT method, and the fact that you have so much experience working with high-level athletes, celebrities, just people all over the place, and still being able to, create these overarching wellness programs to keep these people healthy is amazing. So before we dive into how you're doing that, let's learn a little bit more about you and what your background is.
So my background is I was born and raised in Sri Lanka, and I came to America when I was 14 years old. So I literally learned English when I was in high school. Then I went to college. I went to college for a small Division II college, and I got a track scholarship. And I didn't know what I want to study. Since I did sports, I figured I'd do sports medicine. And Brian, that really took off. That's probably the best check mark that I ever put in my life, right? That's just literally synchronicity, opened the floodgates for me. Everything I studied in school, even though I couldn't really barely write and read, and my English speaking was okay. When it came to sports medicine, I was hooked. I couldn't stop reading. I understood it. I almost like, why others can't get A's? It's so easy, right? And I am failing all the history, religion, sociology class, but sports medicine, I could get it. Then after that, I got an internship with the Washington Redskins football team right after college. I worked in a clinic like few months. Then I worked for the Washington Redskins for 2 years. 1 year was an internship. Next year I travel and do all that. So it's a part-time job. And after that, just like any professional team, when you don't win, your head coach get fired, your director get fired. So they clean the house. Then I was like, I'm just going to apply to Washington Wizards. And it's amazing. So this was 2003. And they were like, we really don't have a job, but you could come in and just create something. And I went in 2003, and literally I never left the building. I literally was there every single day. At one point, I was there during the winter months. I was working for the Washington Wizards, and during the summer months, I was working for the Washington Mystics WNBA team. So last August was my 17th year, and it was a perfect into my segue. It was perfect time to kind of finish my junior high school kind of graduate. So I am on to my next journey of, I always say that I helped 15 millionaire young athletes every year. Now I really want to help 15 million people every year. So now I'm in the out there in the field, helping anyone and everyone that I can come across.
So I'm curious, since you were doing track and you were learning different stuff about sports medicine, were you able to take that information about sports medicine and use it to improve your own athletics and track?
I did absolutely. I think that's where it started, right? I think that's where my biohacking started. I was literally reading and studying this Russian triple jump. I did the triple jump, Russian plyometrics techniques. I'm experimenting on myself. I am trying this biohacking, nutrition, kind of like a fat adaptation. This was like in 2000s. I'm trying to figure out how I could manipulate the nutrition, the sunlight, the machines in the training room, how I can. So I would go to the training room at 11 o'clock, at 12 o'clock when there's nobody around, just kind of using everything and to see how I could heal it. So that was my journey of just really took off of just being a biohacker, not only the quote unquote the term biohacking, but really something that you are very familiar to, like bio individuality, like really figuring out what's the best food for them, right? And then something that you do, like when it comes to exercise, how can I really customize exercise, nutrition, mindfulness to this particular person? So it really started from me. Now I got an opportunity to share with others. But anytime that I get a sample of functional medicine supplements or a new tool, a machine, I use it first. I want to be a believer in it. I want to try it. I want to heal myself. Then when I believe it, it's so much easier to tell other people.
So working with professional athletes, were there any surprising things that you learned about their health protocols and their training protocols that you didn't expect whatsoever?
Brian, I learned so much, but I don't know if I told this to somebody else, I don't think they'll get it. But I want to tell you because of who you are and because of what you do. Like for example, right? Because of your nutritional lens, I could talk about nutrition. Like in professional sports, you're amazed by the nutritionist, dietitian just giving Gatorade, soy, corn, wheat. I'm like, what are we doing? Gummy bear candies, like no, like so that's just mind-boggling that at the highest level, at the Ferrari, they're putting bad gasoline in, right? Like the nutritionist or the dietitianist will recommend like PB&J jelly or Uncrustables that had like 25 ingredients before the game. Or that's one lens. Or we could talk about uh, surgeons just want to have surgery, right? Like there's no preventative medicine. It's all reactive medicine. Or you could talk about internal medicine physicians just prescribing statins or cholesterol medicine or insulin pump. Like there's no preventative care, and I would say that's the most surprising thing. I feel like since I started from 2003 to now, it just went from one extreme of preventative care to like now it's like pretty much all pharmaceutical, where it's no different because that's the patients that I see, right? Like today I got a phone call saying, oh, my doctor telling me don't take salt. I'm like, no, we need salt. We need real salt. We don't need processed, caked, bleach salt, but we need real salt that has all the natural elements that just came from under the ground. Same thing with like we could talk about cholesterol medicine or we could talk about blood pressure medicine. That's almost the question. Your question was like, what surprised me? What surprised me is that highest level of professional athletes, highest level is no difference than what's happening to our parents, our brothers, and our sisters in the real world.
Yeah, preventative care is one of the most underutilized aspect of health. And I think a big part of it is because it's so hard to determine that what you did prevented something, right? You can't say that you eating salt, a certain type of salt prevented X because it's hard to predict the future. But we live in such a reactive world where we know that if you blew your ACL out, then we do this for that to fix the ACL. So I think if teams and just people in general focus more on the preventative side, even though it's hard to fully understand what that's going to do in the future, we could stop a lot of disease, a lot of injuries, a lot of health complications that we're currently facing as a society, even though we might not know exactly what's happening or what will happen in the future, but it'll at least slow down the progress.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you said it right. Like, it's literally like when that's ACL happened, the ortho fixed the ACL, but we really never addressed the root cause, right? Because of your background in Gray Institute, we got to look at the gray toe extension. We got to look at the calcaneus, pronatus, and supination. We got to look at the neck, right? C1, C2. Like, we got to look at the teeth because dental effect on the ACL, like, lot of people, right? 99.99% of people really look at that lens, they look at the knee, but they really forget everywhere else. Then they really forget to look at the nutrition because that's a huge component on gut, right? What we eat. If you don't eat the right food or that night before, the month before, 3 months before, that has a huge correlation to that ACL. So everything is really tied in to the word that you use, diseases. Diseases are man-made. We created it because of the convenience. They never had diseases. I was in Tanzania a few months ago with the Maasai people. When we talked about diseases, they couldn't even understand it. I'm like, no, humans getting sick. They were like, no. Our sheep get sick, our cow get sick. I'm like, no. Man, human, you getting sick? It's like, no. They didn't even understand that. So it's us in these countries, is first world countries that have all these diseases, even though we have every single thing that we need.
You're the second person in like 2 or 3 days that have talked about the Maasai people and the lack of disease there. So I think I need to make a note to look further into the Maasai because that sounds like a safe haven from disease over there.
Oh, it's amazing. One thing I want to tell you about it. So we were there in Tanzania and Zanzibar, and Tanzania we were in like few days with Maasai people. One thing that was mind-boggling to me was dental. So by looking at somebody's teeth there, you could tell. So when you're in the Maasai, right? It's in the jungle, like in the middle of the jungle. By looking at the teeth, you could tell if they are really a Maasai who just stay in the jungle or Maasai that goes to the town. The Maasai that stays in the jungle, their teeth is like my wall, white, clean, pristine. The people who go to the village to either work or do something, they eat sugar, corn, flour. They have yellow marks all over the place. So it's incredible. Just by looking at the teeth, you know how healthy they are and what kind of food they eat. Do they get to eat American standard food, the flour, the corn, the canola oil, or are they really eating only goat meat, cow meat? Really 99% goat milk, blood, and nose to tail organ meats.
So I'm curious, when you're just looking at them visually, the ones that tend to stay in the jungle more versus the ones that go into the city or into the towns, do you notice any distension in their stomachs or anything like that just visually looking at them?
Yeah, you could. I mean, you said it. The stomach. You could see they're like little puffier. First of all, they're the one who speaks good English, right? Because they go to the city, so they learn a little bit, so they could speak English. So first of all, when they're speaking, you get to see their teeth is really rotten. There's cavities, all kinds of diseases in there. And at the same time, you could see the puffiness of the inflammation, puffiness in their face, and a little bit on the gut. Like you could see, it's different. It's different. Like we were talking to couple of elders and they're 80 years old, 80 some, they're like 80 plus. They really don't know their age. And like, they're like holding on to the goat and squatting down and cutting the liver and all that. And the others, you could see almost like, I don't want to call it lazy, but I could see just not as comfortable as squatting down, kind of like that. So it's very interesting that I was able to pick it up.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I'm definitely gonna have to look more into them and make my way over there at some point. But taking that information that you just talked about, how different foods, can have different impacts on the body, we know that certain foods can cause inflammation in the body. And you mentioned that you do food sensitivity testing with your athletes that you're working with to see what's going on there. So we also know that excess inflammation in the system can also cause havoc to ligaments, muscle tissue, fibers, all sorts of stuff in the body, which could then eventually lead to injuries. So it's interesting because a lot of like ACL tears I think, what is it, over 70% of ACL tears are non-contact related? So these people aren't even getting touched and they're tearing their ACLs. So do you think this is a training issue? Like they're not being trained appropriately to handle those type of stresses as they're moving? Do you think it's a nutrition issue? Do you think it's a combination of that plus other potential stressors such as environment, lack of sleep, etc.? What do you think there?
I think it's a human issue. I don't think it's one issue. I think it's a little bit of sleep issue, a little bit of stress issue, a little bit of nutrition issue, a little bit of mobility issue, a little bit of strength issue. It's not one, but a little bit of everything. They might have one big giant thing, right? Maybe they're just not mindful, or maybe they just don't get the sleeping, the nutrition. Maybe they might have one big thing, but along that they're sprinkled in so many little things, and that's why they get hurt on the field or they get diseases, right? Like Brian, like I'm looking at doing these functional medicine labs on these 19, 20, 21-year-old kids, and they are A1C is like 5.9, their fasting glucose is like 112, and they got like 4 or 5 on the insulin. Like, it's forget putting ice after practice. Forget using the cryo chamber after practice, right? Forget eating the protein or whatnot. Like figure out the root cause and fix it with nutrition. It doesn't matter. Like, these kids want to get massages, treatment, acupuncture, cupping, all that, but they don't want to spend 2 minutes and cook an egg with proper oil and source a proper organic egg. They rather do the convenience of a drive-by of fast food restaurant and spend about the same amount of money, but they don't want to do the turn the oven on and put oil and put few eggs.
Yeah, it's interesting because athletes are the people that we usually look up to, right? A lot of people, they look at athletes and they figure they're super healthy. I want a body that looks like theirs. I want to be in shape. They have the best lives ever. But when you actually work with athletes, a lot of their systems are just wrecked. They're hurting all the time. Like you said, they're not eating very well. They're eating crap food. They're more prone to injuries. I think in the NFL, the average lifespan is like 2 to 3 years before you have a career-ending injury. And so the people that you see that's been in there for a long time, that's kind of rare overall compared to the number of athletes coming through there. So on the one side, we're visually looking at someone and thinking that's what we want to be like. But in reality, there's so much more going on behind the scenes that we don't recognize that probably is not that great for our systems overall. It's a lot of stress.
Absolutely. I mean, you said it, right? Those are the people that we look up to. Brian, when I was in Sri Lanka, when I was until age of 14, I want to be a cricketer. So I literally ate what the cricketers was sponsored, right? They were sponsored in a drink like Milo. It's almost like worse than Gatorade, and the cricketers were sponsoring hot dogs. So my mom said that's all I ate when I was little: hot dog and rice and Milo every single meal, because I look up to them. I want to be like them. But now we know, like, is fructose, glucose, maltose, corn in that, and in the hot dog is not even meat in there, right? So even though we look up to these people, like you said, these people are these high-end athletes are in pain, they are gassy, they are bloated, they have skin issue. But what it is that they're so gifted, they're so good at performing the sport. But when it comes to human beings, they're really functioning at an average level. But again, they're super skilled as dunking or kicking or throwing ball or tackling at the highest level. But we are thinking just because they could do that they are better than us. But if you really look at ourselves, our family members might be the best accountant, the best doctors, but it's not so cool because they're not on TV. Whenever somebody's on TV and performing all this, we are thinking they're great, but they're really not that healthy. Or they are trying to be that healthy, coming from that, being in that industry for 20 years, that I know, like, drink like NBA, NFL is sponsored by Gatorade, or NHL is sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts, right? So that alone tells us it's not real food, real ingredients. That means they are surviving, they're doing really good, but they're not thriving. That means, like you said, their career is 3 to 4 years, but if they ate like a normal human being, it might be 10 years, 2 years, right? Maybe athletes might be able to play 45 to 50 years old if they took care of themselves. Like we already see like Tom Brady is just an outlier, but if everyone started doing the sleep, the nutrition, the mindfulness, maybe everyone be in the NBA until they're 35, 40, 45. But we don't know because they don't really care about the nutrition fact. Oh, the mainstream media, the mainstream physicians, the standard doctor or the nutritionist, they don't talk about food. They talk about packaged food, right?
Yep, for sure. And luckily, the athletes that work with you, they're getting a head start on all this stuff. They're learning more about their bodies and they're taking care of themselves. But there are a lot of athletes and just people in general that don't know this stuff. So we'll stick with the athletes for now. When you're working with someone or you're called in to work with someone and it's preseason, not during the season, but it's before the season begins or outside of the main season, what are some of the first steps that you take them through to get them started on this journey with you? And then how does that change once they enter into their season?
I think really the first thing that starts on me with the fridge. I just really need to figure out what their Ferrari. I already know it's a Ferrari, right? So it really starts with the fuel. Let's look at your fuel. Not only the fuel that you put on your body, right? The gas that you put on. I want to know your transmission fluid. I want to know your brake fluid. I want to know your windshield wiper fluid. So I literally start with I would start with a food sensitivity test. So I want to know what kind of food they could start eating. Then I want to do like a complete panel of like urine, stool, and blood to figure out what they're deficient in. So I want to kind of tap off those two, and then now after that, the car has all the fuel. Then I work on alignment, right? Let's go into Gary Gray Institute and let me put that hat on. I want to know, can they turn left? Can they turn right? Can they reverse? Can they go fast, slap, brake? Like I want to know if their ankle move like an ankle, neck move like a neck. Can they move their teeth? Can they open their teeth? Can they breathe like a normal human being? So I want to know, are they normal? So clean those patterns, clean the nutrition. Now we go on it. So it's like a car. Now we drive. It's a Daytona 500. Now we drive 200 miles, 500 miles, but we bring into the pit stop every day. Before practice, after practice, we bring into the pit stop, top off the fluid, we go, and we do checks, checks here and there. Every car shows, every red flag, every All-Star weekend, every time they're in Washington, D.C. or I fly to them, we check and see, okay, how are you compared to preseason? How is your workload? How is your brake fluid? How is your food sensitivity? What's happening? How is your bloating? How is your sleep? How is your REM sleep? How is your deep sleep? How is your resting heart rate? The quality of sleep. I really need to know everything compared to you. It's not compared to LeBron or Tom Brady. It's compared to you, compared to your norm. How are you doing now? That's in the middle of the season. So I'm not trying to make them the best LeBron or best Tom Brady or best Sammy Sosa. I'm trying to compare them to their best thumbprint, to best version of themselves, how we can get the best out of their body and their mind.
Yep, I love that. I love that you're incorporating all those different aspects into it. And so when you're setting people up on these programs, what's kind of your timeline to know if the right fuel is working well, or if you need to change the quality of the fuel? Or how do you know when the right alignment and tuning that you're doing is the right program for them?
So I love that question. So let's go into with performance. So it's every day test, treat, retest, right? Okay, let's take their ankle dorsiflexion. Okay, what is it? Let's treat it. Let's retest it. How is it? I test it. Then, hey, Brian, how are you? Can you walk? Can you run? Can you jump? Is it better? Right? You're the driver. I'm just a mechanic, but I want to call into the cockpit and say, hey, Brian, how do you feel? How is the car running? How is the car turning? So it's just a constant communication when it comes to performance. But that's no different than nutrition, right? Hey, Brian, how did you sleep last night? How is your energy? Do you need 5 cups of coffee, or are you high on life? You don't need anything. Can we fast today for 18 hours? Or you can, because we are nutritionally depleted from yesterday. You can fast for 10 hours. So those are kind of indications that tells me. Also, I just love looking at them. When I'm there, I see it, right? I see it in their eye, their body language, their energy, their saliva, their lips, their mannerism. I get to see so much just because I've been on the court, sitting on the court, been on the field, been in thousands of practices, so it just intuitively I get it, I understand it. It's who I am as a person. I get a vision. I'm sorry, but I wish without being like a 5D woo woo. That's another way to say it. But I just know that, like, hey, this kid needs this. Like, let me, like, the question pops into my head.
Perfect. Yep. Yeah, I'm loving all of this. So now people listening to this, they might be like, I'm not a professional athlete, so I don't know if this really applies to me. However, we do know that you still require your brain in order to function, especially, any type of mental type of job, like a corporate type of situation where you're using your brain for computer stuff, working with other people. So how can we still apply this to the general population? And why is it important for them to go through this same type of method for their own bodies?
You know what? To be honest with you, I think professional athletes have it easy. They just go to work for a couple hours, right? And they're done. Regular people, you just said it, lawyers, corporate people, teachers, housewives, moms, they work non-stop. So professional athlete, they work for 3 hours, 4 hours. They got a masseuse, acupuncture, chiropractor, osteopath, doctors, food. They don't have to think about food. They don't have to think about anything. All they got to really do is just go to the court and work out. For us, we actually had to pay for the gym to work out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. On top of that, these athletes getting paid so much money. So I think it's being a professional athlete is super easy compared to being a mom or housewife or lawyer, whatever job it is. It's tough. First of all, you got to put in hours upon hours work. So when you talk about the time wise, it's so much more. Then we have to go and work out. Okay. So real human beings, real people is already starting a disadvantage because you already lost. Not want to say lost, but 1/3 of the day is already gone. You're doing something for somebody else. Okay. So now your question is, how can we do this? So the way, since we have to give 1/3 of our day to somebody else, we need to fill up a cup. So how do we fill up a cup, right? The way that we fill up a cup is nutrition. So I'm going to talk about 4 pillars. Like our cup is standing on four legs of the stool. So our cup really starts with nutrition. Nutrition really starts with food that works the best for you. Okay? Food that works for Brian or his wife Sarah or me or my wife. All of us have different thumbprints. So all of us need different food. If Brian could eat a sweet potato, it doesn't mean I can eat a sweet potato. I need to find out if it's good for me to eat a sweet potato, because the way that we digest it, the way that the glycemic index is going to affect us, the way that our DNA is made is little different. So we need to know, first of all, if the food that we are eating is proper for us based on our DNA, based on our muscle testing, based on our food sensitivity. We just got to test it and find out. If you can't test it and find out, right? Say if you're a Maasai person in Tanzania, you have nothing. But they know intuitively when they eat this fruit, the berry, I just don't feel good. At nighttime, my heart rate kind of goes up. Oh, I just start scratching. Oh, it just doesn't make me feel good. Your body is telling us, if you listen to your inner self, if you just be quiet and just listen, we could hear and understand how that food affected. We know that, all of us intuitively know that. Our kids know that. A lot of kids are like, throw away certain food, and we're like, no, eat this. But a few years later, we go to the doctor and test it. All of a sudden, they're sensitive to the food that they throw away. A quick example of me, like I drink a coffee every morning, Brian, black coffee. And then like last month, like my brain was like, my brain was like not even thinking coffee. Where I'm a coffee addict. When I go anywhere in the country, we drink a more-free, toxin-free coffee first thing in the morning. It's just like I like the taste. So my brain is like, no, 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 no. I tried it. I brew it. I cannot even drink a sip. So then I did. I was messing around with a different type of food sensitivity test called yolk test. And one of the food that red flag was coffee. I'm like, wow, that month my body intuitively knew I didn't want to drink coffee. So in about 3 months, if I redo the test, most likely the coffee is gonna be going away. But that's how we are. We intuitively know it. So that's the nutrition. Second thing is sleep, right? Brian, you just had a guest recently. It talked about one of the vitamins that no one's talking about, the vitamin S, sleep. So we need the vitamin S. It's not about sleep. Are you getting 2 to 3 hours of deep sleep? Are you getting 2 to 3 hours of REM sleep? When does your heart rate lowers? Is it lowering at 6 a.m. before you get up? That means you, instead of repairing the whole night, you were working the whole night. You were digesting the food all night. That means you ate food too close to the bedtime, right? Like sleeping is not just sleeping. Working out is not just working out. We gotta be quality workout. If you go and work out every day, run 3 miles, at one point it's something better than nothing, but at a certain point there's going to be no return in that investment. So same thing with sleep. We got to make sure we hit those amazing markers. So if you don't have a tracker like a Whoop or Aura that you want to know how you sleep, well, one of the best tests is when you get up in the morning, how's your energy level? Do you run to Starbucks and get 5 coffees? Do you fall asleep at 3 o'clock? Do you hit the snooze button 5 times? Right? Those are easy indications that doesn't cost us anything to figure out if you are getting the second place. So we talked about nutrition, we talked about sleep, and remember, when you don't sleep, you mess up the nutrition, because obviously Brian knows your hunger hormones kicked in. Now you're going to that packet of chips, right? Then my third pillar is mindfulness. If you are not being mindful of what you eat or how you sleep, we know obviously if you're not mindful, even that's an effect on gut microbiome, right? We are thinking about something else, the TV, the Twitter, the IG, we are not healing ourselves. So we are being monkey mind instead of healing and repairing ourselves and being at state of peace where the disease doesn't get into our body. When we are not mindful, Brian, we are creating a toxic environment. We are creating a 5G unbreathable environment that we cannot exist. So we got to be very mindful. We got to be very at peace, so we could sleep good, so we could eat good, and we could perform and heal. So it's mindful is another pillar. And then last thing is, like we talked about, if you're running every day, it's good. Yeah, obviously it's good, just like sleeping every day, but you're missing so many other valuable, maybe you need to have one day of mobility, one day of yoga, one day of cross training, one day of heavy lifting. Our body likes alternative movements. Our body likes forward, backwards, sideways, turning, twisting, rolling, right? Kind of like what the kids did when that 3 months mark. They were crawling, they are rolling, they are half kneeling, they are squatting. So we need those fundamental ontology developmental movements of basic movements. So honestly, a person to do the normal movements, just do what the baby did. Roll a little bit, crawl a little bit, crawl forwards, backwards, sideways, squat down. If you have a desk, stand up, right? So like variation of your sitting throughout the day. So all these are really simple. I call them free 99, that it doesn't cost anything, and that will prevent 99.9% of the diseases. And not only we get to be human, but we get to thrive at the highest level of human being. Living is great, but imagine you're thriving every day, right? That's just like a player on the court having 50 points, 25 rebounds, 25 assists, or throwing 7 touchdowns. We can do it every day if we take care of ourselves by being mindful. When we are mindful, we're gonna dial in our sleep, nutrition, movement. We're gonna dial in everything. So kind of tie into what we talked about. Everything's interconnected, but the biggest thing is we are our own CEO of our health, right? Even a lot of the professional athletes, they're not the CEO of their own health, right? They are just a race car, or they are just a driver, right? Their nutrition is done by somebody else. Their orthopedics is done by somebody else. Their sleep is dysfunctional because of something else, right? They are not being a human being. So in order to be a human being, we got to go back to our ancestors. How did they do it? They went to bed when the sun went down and sun came back up. They ate real food that needed sun, water, the ground. They were very peaceful because they didn't have that box that always kind of put out news, that bad news, or the Twitter, the IG, right? They were very much at inner peace, content, and they ran every day. Sprint someday because they were chasing somebody. Someday they would go a walk. They would take their shoes off and they're connected with the ground, the earthing, the grounding, which you're a big fan of, right? Let's go back to the normal health human being. Then, Brian, we could climb the summit of health, wellness, and performance. We are in charge to climb the summit mountain of health, wellness, and performance.
I love it. I love it. And I love that you said we are the CEO of our own health. That is like one of the perfect definitions I've heard is we are in charge, even if it's just one person, but we are in charge of that one person. And it is our responsibility to take care of that one person. And I've said it before on the podcast, but I'll say it again. A lot of times people focus too much on other people. Like if you have a family, you're so focused on your taking care of your family that you forget to take care of yourself. But if you put that energy into taking care of yourself, you'll be able to better take care of other people. So always work on your own health, no matter what. That should be priority number one for everybody.
Absolutely, 100%. Fill your cup, then it's easy to give other people from your cup. If you have an empty cup, you can't even take care of yourself. It's empty. You don't have anything to give.
Right. Yep. Well, you have the REDT method, and we've talked a little bit about it, but can you explain a little bit more about what the REDT method is?
So REDT method really came about, when I retired, everyone was asking, what was your method? What did you do? So I kind of sit down and really figure out what am I doing? How am I keeping these people from not having surgeries and playing in the NBA for a long time, or being a normal human being for a long time? So it's REDT. So RE is root cause evaluation, right? That's something that even you love it. It's in your website. Root cause. What's the root cause? So that's RE, root cause, and root cause evaluation, right? And then D is for design. I need to design. So when I go and see a patient, I need to design. Sometimes I gotta design their bedroom, their fridge, their training plan, their partner, their workouts, their supplements. We gotta design. We gotta come up with a plan. Then T is for transformational treatment. So we talk about an ACL, right? Brian, I take pride in my athletes not getting hurt. That's my pride. Like 1 year in the WNBA, we had a losing season, but every single athlete, actually for a couple of years, every single athlete played every single game. Nobody got hurt. So I take pride in people playing without getting hurt. So T for transformational treatment. I want to transform. If that person got an ACL, I want to prevent that person getting another injury on that leg, other leg, any other injuries that has to do anything with that. So T for transformational treatment as a human being, as an athlete, as a person. So that's our REDT, REDT method.
Perfect. And then my final main question for you is, what is your vision of what healthy looks like, and what are 3 things you do daily to reach that vision?
To me, healthy is we talked about it, right? You are your own CEO. That means no pharmaceuticals, no physicians. You are not in pain. Your energy level's high. You're high on life, and you're just very grateful for what you have. Like you're just literally in charge of your own life, and you're thriving. So that's my vision of being vision of perfect health. And what I do every day, you know what? Every day I just literally biohack myself for good nutrition. I go and find, I go to the farm, I drive to the farm. I want to know what the cow is fed. I want to touch the cow. I want to see the grass. So I don't buy anything, or I don't put anything in my body if I don't know what the animal ate. So I'm very much into figuring out the real food, the real ingredients. Then I respect my sleep. I monitor my sleep. I track my sleep. I figure out where their holes are, because remember, it doesn't matter how much gas you put in your gas tank. If you have a hole, it's just going to keep leaking out, right? So I minimize the leaks through my sleep, my nutrition. And Brian, obviously I work out every day. I do, CrossFit, paddleboarding, basketball, soccer, yoga, hard yoga, anything and everything, different movements. And then at the end, the way that I tie everything in, just being mindful every day, right? It's not about the yoga that you do that 1 hour of the week or 1 hour of the day. Are you being in a yoga type of movement, or are you doing mindful movement? What I'm trying to say is that if you do CrossFit every day for 1 hour, and if you go and sit for 10 hours and you sleep the wrong way for another 10 hours, you're going to be stiff ball, right? You're going to be like a brick. But if you do CrossFit for 1 hour, but if you move throughout the day, you're going to be very mobile, very stable, very strong throughout the day, and you're going to maintain that. So same thing with me. For me, the biggest thing in my life right now at age 45 is inner peace, at peace of mind. So I really cherish it. I keep that well guarded, and by me keeping it guarded, my life is thriving. I feel good. My energy level, attract amazing human beings like you into my life, amazing clients, amazing patients. So it's who we are inside, it's what we vibrate outside, and that's what we attract. And we attract incredible, amazing life, right? We are in a human journey, spiritual beings in a human journey, and we want to thrive every single day. And that's where I'm at, when I'm very mindful, when I'm pay attention to my inner self. My life is amazing, and that's my journey right now, Brian. Telling people that how to be the CEO of their own life, to find amazing practitioners like you, to troubleshoot, to figure out where they have a leak in their gas tank, and not to live, but to thrive at the highest and the best way they could possibly can.
That's awesome. I love everything that you're doing, Navin. Where can people find more about you, and where do you want to send people?
So I, since COVID started, I retired from my MBA. So I started a website. It's called navinhealth.com. And then I started the IG a few months ago. I call it my COVID IG. So I want to share more information with people. It's navin.het. That's my IG, and I have a LinkedIn. My whole name is my LinkedIn. And please send me any questions. And I want to let everyone know that first of all, congratulations, Brian, on this amazing podcast. And people who are listening to this information, you are already head of the masses, right? Head of the 99.9%, and continue to do what you're doing. Somebody just said that masses, if you take the M out, it spells a really bad word. So we don't want to spell a bad word. So stay away from the masses. Be connected to a person like Brian. Listen to the Summit of Wellness podcast. It's amazing information. Be your best version every day, and take care of yourself.
Awesome, Navin. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm definitely going to make sure to get you back on the show at another time, because I think we have lots more that we can talk about and dive into. And I just love the energy that you bring to all this and the message that you're trying to share with everyone. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Brian. It's all my pleasure. Appreciate you.
Navin was such a blast to chat to, and he's such a good guy, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. I hope in a decade or two, I can be half as good as he is at what he's doing. And I'm so excited that he's able to incorporate a lot of these strategies that he's learned with working with professional athletes in sports, and to apply it to the general population like the rest of us. Not all of us are going to be athletes whose entire lives is based around, focusing on our health. But we should be incorporating this into our daily lives because the only important thing we do have is our health. We need to recognize that as a species, that we need to be working on our health as much as we can and not giving it up, because there will be a point in your life that you'll wish that you had better health than what you do. So if you work on these strategies, start applying them to your life and start making little changes here and there, overall in the long term, you're going to see drastic success. So definitely start applying what you learned from this episode to your own daily routine. Next week, let's go learn who my guest is and what we'll be learning about. I am here with Sean Wells. Hey, Sean, what is one unique thing about you that most people don't know?
That I'm double jointed.
Whoa. Is it everywhere or just specific joints?
Just my fingers. I can't do like the full, fit in like a little basket kind of thing, but it's got its advantages, I guess. Like I don't tend to stub my fingers or break them.
Yeah, it's always a good party trick too.
Yes,
you want to catch people's attention. Well, what will we be learning about in our interview together?
In our interview, we're going to go through ways to increase your energy by looking at experimentation with blood work and genetics, the diets that make sense, doing different exercises, what it looks like to have a growth mindset, having the right people around you, and most certainly we go through supplements and deficiencies. What are the right supplements? How should you be taking them? What brands you need to look at? All that good stuff.
What are your favorite foods or nutrients that you think everyone should get more of in their diet?
We go through this in the video. So teaser, definitely vitamin D3 and magnesium, but there's way more to talk about in the video.
And then what are your top 3 health tips for anyone who wants to improve their overall wellness?
My top health tip is something that we talk about in the video, but quickly, exercise snacks, finding ways to move your body throughout the day every hour so that you're not too sedentary. Your body will remodel itself to hold itself in the least energetic way. So over time, when you're sitting in chairs, your body is remodeling to keep you in that bent position, that uncomfortable positioning, shortening muscles, things like that. So that's where you need to just move your body, get your blood flowing, get your muscles moving, and not be sedentary.
Chatting with Sean, we talked a lot about nutraceuticals, and it's a lot of fun to see different viewpoints on the nutraceutical industry. So until then, keep climbing to the peak of your health.